Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Giving everything to someone, your time, energy, and love, only to be treated like you're in the way. Imagine dedicating your life to someone, only to have them push you aside. This isn't a tale I'm telling for dramatic effect. It's my truth. A truth I kept silent about for far too long. If you've ever felt invisible, unappreciated, or taken for granted, stay with me. This isn't just my story. It could very well be yours too. But before we get started, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. My name is Margaret Turner and I'm in my 60s now, living in a quiet neighborhood just outside Portland, Oregon. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story like this, but here I am. I've learned the hard way that silence breeds resentment, and I've stayed silent for too long. It all started when I left my husband. I was in my late 40s, and after years of enduring his cruelty, manipulation, and quiet anger, I walked away. It almost broke me, but I did it. I left for my own sanity and for my daughter, Emily. She was in her early 20s then, a college student full of promise. I thought she'd be proud. I thought she'd understand. But instead, she became distant. She told me I'd given up on our family, that I was the one who broke everything. She blamed me, but I didn't leave her. Even when she shut me out, I stayed close. She married young, had children quickly, and her marriage fell apart just as fast. Suddenly, she was a single mother of two, and I was there. Always there. I moved into the guest house behind her home. I cooked meals, changed diapers, and drove the kids everywhere. School, soccer practice, birthday parties. I was there through fevers, science projects, first heartbreaks, and nightmares. I held all of it quietly, never asking for much in return. I thought that's what love meant. You give, you show up, and you hold on. But Emily? She never softened. If anything, the years made her harder. She would snap at me in front of the kids, roll her eyes, and tell me I was too involved, too old-fashioned, too much. You're babying them, she'd say. They'll never learn to stand on their own with you hovering around all the time. Sometimes, I'd overhear her on the phone with friends, laughing. My mom? She's basically free childcare with opinions. And I'd laugh too, though it was a quiet, hollow laugh, hiding the sting it left inside me. But it hurt. It hurt more than I could say. What kept me going, what made it bearable, were my grandchildren. They clung to me like I was their anchor in a storm. After school, they'd run straight into my arms, curl up beside me on the couch. As they grew, they shared everything with me. School struggles, crushes, fights with their mom. I was their safe place, their confidant. I knew their hearts. But still, I couldn't ignore the way Emily looked at me. Like I was temporary, just a body in the background of her life. Not a mother, not a woman with a past, just a caretaker. I began to wonder if she ever really saw me at all. And then one day, everything changed. It started with exhaustion, not just tiredness, but a deep, bone-shaking fatigue that never left. Walking from the kitchen to the porch became a challenge. I couldn't even stand without needing to sit down. I was losing weight. My hand shook. The doctor ran some tests, then more tests. You need to take it easy, he said. But it wasn't just fatigue. Something was wrong, and I was about to find out just how deeply things had been broken. Not just in my body, but in my heart too. He sat me down and looked at me with those eyes, the kind that try to soften the blow before delivering the hardest news. Cancer. Aggressive. I left that appointment with a silence heavier than anything I had ever carried before. I didn't know how to tell Emily. I wasn't afraid of the illness itself. I was terrified of how she would react. What if she saw it as just another inconvenience in her already busy life? I could feel the weight of the words I was about to say, but I waited 3 days. Then I finally told her. She looked up from her phone, blinked a couple of times, and said, "Oh, well, we'll figure something out." Her tone was so flat, so distant, it felt like she wasn't even listening. Later that week, she casually dropped it into conversation. "You should probably hire a nurse, Mom. I really don't have the time for all that." That moment when I saw how little she cared, was when I stopped pretending. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She didn't offer to take me to appointments. All she said was to hire a nurse, as if I were just another problem for someone else to take care of. So I did what she suggested. I picked up the phone, made the call, and that decision, made in the silence of my aching heart, would turn out to be the first step toward everything that came after. At the time, I had no idea what was coming. The nurse arrived on a Wednesday morning. Her name was Lisa Coleman. She was 38, with short chestnut hair and kind eyes that had clearly seen a lot. Lisa had that quiet strength, the kind of presence that didn't demand attention, but somehow filled the space with calm and comfort. Emily wasn't home when Lisa first came by, so it was just me sitting on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, pretending the crisp Oregon air wasn't slicing through my bones. Lisa approached with a clipboard and a smile that wasn't forced, unlike the ones I'd grown used to. "Mrs. Turner?" she asked. "Margaret," I corrected her. "Just Margaret?" she asked. I nodded, and from that moment on, something shifted. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. She wasn't intrusive, nor was she overly cheerful. She simply saw me not as a patient, not as a burden, but as a woman who needed a little help. The first week was simple. Medication schedules, meal prep, light cleaning, doctor visits. But Lisa did more than just that. She noticed things. She saw when my hands trembled before I even realized it. She brought me warm socks without me having to ask. She even refilled the bird feeder because she figured the view might cheer me up. Small, thoughtful gestures, things Emily hadn't done in years, that IT wasn't just what she did. It was how she talked to me, as if I mattered. Like my thoughts and feelings weren't an inconvenience to her. After lunch, we'd sit on the porch, and I'd tell her stories about the garden I used to have before my body started failing me. She would listen, really listen, and then say something like, "You should tell me which flowers to plant. I've got the hands and you've got the vision." I hadn't smiled like that in years. But when Emily came over to see me, and I used the word see generously since she mostly stood in the doorway, scrolling through her phone, she didn't ask how I was feeling. Her eyes darted around the house, focusing more on what Lisa was doing or not doing. "How's the nurse?" she asked one afternoon, sipping her iced coffee like it was the only thing that mattered. "She has a name," I replied. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Okay, how's Lisa?" "She's wonderful," I said, maybe too firmly. "She takes good care of me." Emily didn't respond. She just nodded, her lips pressed tight, and then left a few minutes later. No goodbye hug. No checking to make sure my prescriptions were in order. Nothing. It was around that time that I started noticing changes in myself. The more Lisa cared for me, the more I realized how little care I had allowed myself to receive over the years. Not just since the diagnosis, but long before that, during my marriage, after the divorce, even with Emily, especially with Emily. One evening, Lisa sat with me while I waited for the results of another scan. I sat quietly, my mind spiraling. She gently turned to me and said, "You've carried a lot of people for a long time, haven't you?" I just looked at her, unsure of how to respond. "You don't have to keep holding everyone up," she added, her voice soft but steady. "Let someone hold you for once." In that moment, I understood. I had spent my entire life giving, holding everyone else up, and now it was my turn to be held. That night I cried. Not just tears, but deep, aching sobs. The kind you hold back until you're sure no one is listening. Except someone was, and she didn't look away. Emily started visiting more often after that, but it wasn't warmth she brought. No, it was something different. An energy that was tense, distracted, sharp, like she was watching me, waiting, measuring. She asked more questions, but none of them were about me. "How many hours does Lisa work? Does she cook for you too? Do you really need someone here every day?" It wasn't concern. It was more like possession. Control. It felt as if she was trying to reassert her place in a home she'd long emotionally abandoned. One night, after Emily left abruptly, Lisa turned to me and asked, "Does she always talk to you like that?" And for the first time in my life, I said yes. And I let her. The truth settled between us, heavy and undeniable. That night, I sat alone in my room, reflecting on everything I had given over the years, time, love, my very essence, and how invisible I had become in the process. I looked at the framed pictures of my grandchildren on the shelf, and then my gaze lingered on a photo of Emily from her wedding day. I used to think that photo was beautiful. Now, all I saw was distance. The next morning, I called my lawyer. It was time to make a change. Quietly, deliberately, I realized I had nothing left to prove. But there was still something I needed to protect. When I met with the lawyer later that afternoon, the air felt different. I could still feel the ache in my joints, the fatigue from the night before. But beneath all that, there was something new, something I hadn't felt in years: control. I had made the call early that morning while Lisa was out picking up my medication. The lawyer, Mr. Holloway, was the same one who had handled my divorce decades ago. He was surprised to hear from me, but kind. We scheduled a private meeting at his office for the following afternoon. I didn't tell Emily. When Lisa drove me there, she didn't ask any questions. She simply adjusted the seat warmer in the car, passed me my scarf, and said, "Call if you need me." I looked back at her before walking into the building. I wanted to say thank you, but the words stuck in my throat. I think she understood. Sitting across from Mr. Holloway, my lawyer, felt surreal. We were both older now. He had gone gray and I had lost weight, but he still carried that same calm, steady presence. As he flipped through the old paperwork, he glanced up at me and said, "You never updated your will after your divorce, Margaret." I nodded. "I know. That's why I'm here." When I told him what I wanted, he hesitated. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "This isn't a small change." "I'm sure," I replied, surprised at the firmness in my voice. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt Emily, but I couldn't keep pretending that our relationship was anything other than what it had become, a transaction. And now, finally, as someone was caring for me with real compassion, I could see it clearly. My new will name my grandchildren as equal beneficiaries. I made arrangements to set up education trusts for them, and I included Lisa, not because I owed her, but because she deserved it. She treated me with dignity when no one else did. I signed the papers, sealed them away, and walked out of that office with a strange sense of peace. But that peace wouldn't last long. 2 days later, Emily showed up unannounced. She walked in like she still lived there, barely acknowledging Lisa as she passed her in the hallway. I was in the kitchen, trying to eat something small. My appetite had been off lately. She didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was doing. Instead, she walked right to the fridge, opened it without asking, and began rummaging through it like she owned the place. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at me, shrugged, and said, "I'm just looking for something to snack on." It wasn't about the food. It was about her presence, an entitlement that still lingered in the air. But this time I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. She tossed her purse onto the counter and leaned against the fridge, crossing her arms. "So," she said, her voice tight, controlled, "you've been spending a lot of time with the nurse." I blinked at her, trying to steady myself. "Lisa. Her name's Lisa. Right, Lisa." Her tone was sharp like a blade. "The kid said she's been driving them to school," I offered cautiously. "It helps me and they like her." Emily let out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Of course they do. She's probably spoiling them to get on your good side." I stared at her, unsure whether I was shocked or just growing tired of being shocked. Why would she need to get on my good side? Emily hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know. People have motives. You're not naive, are you, Mom?" Naive. That word from her. After everything, after decades of cleaning up her mess, holding her life together with my bare hands, she called me naive. I stood up slowly, bracing myself on the edge of the table. "Lisa hasn't asked me for a single thing, Emily. Not once. And in case you haven't noticed, she's the only person treating me like I matter." I saw it hit her, a flicker of something in her eyes. But she covered it quickly with a scoff. "Whatever. Just don't be stupid about your money." "Okay." And then, just like that, she was gone. 5 minutes later, out the door, without a single goodbye. I sat there in the silence, staring at the door she had slammed shut behind her. That evening, I found Lisa in the laundry room, folding towels. When she saw me, Her gaze was steady, like she had known this day would come. "Rough day?" she asked softly. I nodded. "They've all been rough lately. But this one left a mark." Lisa didn't push. She just nodded and kept folding, as if giving me space to breathe. It was the first time in years I had felt truly seen. More than that, I felt worthy of being seen. I realized then that love isn't just about blood. It's about presence, respect, and kindness. Sometimes, the people who give you those things aren't the ones who share your DNA. They're the ones who walk in when everyone else walks out. Days passed, and each one left me feeling both stronger and weaker. Stronger in my resolve, weaker in my body. The treatments were taking their toll. I sat through them in silence, the 4 drip feeding poison into my veins instead of healing. My hair thinned. My appetite vanished. The woman in the mirror no longer looked like me. But through all of it, Lisa stayed. She was there when the nausea hit, when I could hardly stand. She was there the morning I collapsed in the hallway, my legs giving out beneath me. She caught me, literally caught me, and didn't let me fall. She stayed up late making bone broth from scratch when she found out it was the only thing I could keep down. She didn't just care for me. She cared about me. Emily, on the other hand, dropped by once every few days, sometimes with the kids, sometimes not. She would stand by the door, checking her phone like she had somewhere better to be. Her visits felt like obligations she couldn't wait to finish. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling treatment, I lay on the couch with a blanket pulled over me. Lisa sat nearby, quietly reading. Emily walked in unannounced, sunglasses still on, coffee in hand. She barely acknowledged me. "You really need her here every day?" she asked, nodding toward Lisa. Lisa didn't flinch. She just kept reading. "Yes," I said plainly, my voice steady. Emily snorted. "You're being dramatic. I mean, I know you're sick, but she's not family, Mom." Family? The word again. I turned my head slowly toward her, my voice quieter than I expected, but sharper than I intended. "No, she's not. She's something better. She's present." Emily rolled her eyes and began pacing the room. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "You act like I've never been here for you." "You haven't," I said, the words slipping out before I even realized what I was saying. They hit harder than I expected. She froze mid-step, her mouth opening and closing as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. A few minutes later, she left, muttering something about needing to pick up the kids. When the door shut behind her, Lisa looked up from her book, her eyes soft with concern. "You okay?" "No," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "But I will be." Later that night, I lay awake in the dark, the quiet hum of the oxygen machine filling the room. My mind wandered through the years of everything I had swallowed, the sacrifices I had made, all the times I put Emily's needs ahead of my own. The birthdays, the breakups, the meltdowns, moments when I dropped everything just to be there for her. And now all I was asking for was support, and she couldn't even give that. She didn't even try. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about her being too busy or overwhelmed. This was about choice. And over again, she had chosen distance. The next morning, Lisa brought me breakfast on a tray, toast, eggs, and sliced strawberries. I hadn't asked for strawberries, but she remembered I liked them. "Thank you," I murmured, my hands trembling as I took the tray. She smiled gently, her words soft but firm. "It's what you deserve." Those 4 words stayed with me all day. It was what I deserved. Not the guilt, not the blame, not the cold visits or the eye rolls. Not being treated like a burden. For the first time in my life, I let that thought bloom within me without shame. I deserve more, and I wasn't afraid to claim it. Lisa became my shadow, but in the best way possible. She moved through the house with quiet ease, never overbearing, never invasive, just there, steady, constant. It was that consistency that started to heal something deeper in me, something I hadn't even realized was broken. She never pried, but she noticed. The way I winced when I stood up. The way I rubbed my temples when a memory hit too hard. The way I stared too long at the window when the laughter of my grandkids echoed faintly from the backyard. One afternoon, I was sitting in the garden with a blanket across my lap when she came out carrying 2 cups of tea. It was a chilly spring day, but I liked it that way. The cool air made me feel awake, alive. She handed me a mug and sat beside me. "You always look out this window," she said gently. "What are you thinking about?" I didn't answer immediately. I watched a blue jay hop along the fence, its feathers flickering in the breeze like silk. "I think about how much I've given," I said quietly, "and how little I've asked for." Lisa didn't say anything right away. She just sipped her tea and waited, letting the silence settle comfortably between us. "I raised Emily," I continued. "I held her when she was sick, when she cried over boys, when her marriage ended. I stayed up all night baking cupcakes for her kids' birthdays. I canceled plans, skipped holidays, ignored my own health, just to keep her life moving." "And she doesn't see it," Lisa said softly. I nodded, my heart heavy. "Worse, she sees it and still treats me like I'm disposable." There was a long silence between us. Not uncomfortable, but full. The kind of silence that feels weighted, like the air itself is holding something unsaid. Then Lisa said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes the people we give the most to are the ones who think we owe it to them." The truth of it stung, but it also soothed something raw inside of me. She understood. She didn't just get the situation. She understood me. That evening, I sat alone in the den, staring at the old filing cabinet where I kept my important documents, insurance papers, property deeds, medical directives, and my will. I realized with a jolt that I had never changed it. Not since my divorce. Everything still listed Emily as the sole heir. Back then, it made sense. She was my only child, my legacy. But now she wasn't living like a daughter. She wasn't showing up like family. I thought about my grandkids, sweet, curious, kind-hearted, and realized they had been shaped more by my love than by Emily's presence. Then I thought about Lisa. She had become so much more than just a nurse, a friend, a caretaker. She was a quiet protector, someone who was there in ways no one else had been. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I called Mr. Holloway again. We met 2 days later, and I told him, firmly and clearly, that I wanted to revise everything. "My grandchildren," I said, "they get equal shares. And Lisa, she gets the house and the savings account." He raised an eyebrow. "Your daughter, she gets nothing." He paused, clearly surprised, then nodded slowly. "Understood." I signed the papers with a hand that trembled slightly, not from doubt, but from the weight of the decision. When it was done, I felt lighter, freer, like I had reclaimed something I hadn't even realized was mine. Later that evening, Lisa found me on the porch. "You've been quiet today," she said, her tone gentle. "I made a decision," I replied. "A big one." She looked at me with concern, but didn't press. "I just realized," I continued, "that I've spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to people who never deserved it." Lisa placed a warm hand over mine. "Then maybe it's time you stop proving and start living." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I felt something settle inside me. Not peace, not yet, but purpose. The calm didn't last. It never does it? A few days after I signed the new will, I overheard a conversation between Emily and one of the kids. She had stopped by unannounced again, claiming she just wanted to check in. But as usual, most of her time was spent fiddling with her phone and asking questions that weren't really questions. "Has the nurse been sleeping here?" she asked my grandson when she thought I wasn't listening. I was in the hallway, out of sight, but her voice carried. "Does she use Nana's car? What about the credit cards? Has she bought anything for herself?" My blood turned cold. It wasn't concern. It wasn't worry. It was investigation. I stepped into the room slowly. "Emily, can I speak with you for a moment?" She looked up, startled, and followed me into the kitchen. "What is it?" she asked, crossing her arms. I looked her square in the eyes. "Why are you interrogating my grandchildren about Lisa?" Her expression flickered. Guilt, annoyance, and then, as always, defensiveness. "I'm just trying to protect you," she said. "You're sick, Mom. People like her take advantage of people like you." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I spoke calmly, evenly, like I was reading from a script. "Lisa has shown me more respect, more kindness, and more care in a month than you have in 10 years. Emily scoffed. "She's being paid." "And you?" I asked, my voice low. What's your excuse? She fell silent, and then she said the words that sealed everything for me. You're being stupid, Mom. You don't even know this woman. You're just lonely. That word, stupid, it hit me like a punch. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling, not from weakness, but from a rage contained over a lifetime. I may be sick, I said, but I'm not stupid. And I'm not lonely. I've just stopped confusing proximity with love. Her face went blank. I knew then that she sensed it, that something had shifted. The control she thought she had emotionally, financially, morally was slipping away. She left in silence that day, her heels clicking down the hallway like gunshots. Later that night, I sat at the dining table with Lisa and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face calm but concerned. Do you want me to step away for a while? She asked gently. Give things some space. No, I said firmly. This is my home. You are not the problem. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us absorbing the weight of the conversation. I reached for her hand and squeezed it. I need you here. Her eyes softened. Then I'm here. The following week passed quietly. Emily didn't visit. The kids still came by after school, bright and sweet as always, but I could sense something in their voices, something off. Hesitation, confusion. Emily had said something to them. I didn't know what, but I could feel it. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from Mr. Holloway. Your daughter came by my office, he said. My stomach dropped. She asked about your will, pressed for information. I couldn't disclose anything, of course, but she's suspicious. She's angry. I thanked him, hung up the phone, and sat in silence for nearly an hour. Emily knew, or at least she suspected. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the sky burned gold, I walked into the garden and stood barefoot on the grass. The air was cool, the wind sharp, but I felt alive. This wasn't about money. It never was. It was about legacy, about what we leave behind, not in bank accounts or deeds, but in people, in love, in memories. And I'd finally decided that my legacy would not be silence. Not anymore. The next morning it happened. The knock on the door wasn't frantic, but sharp, controlled, the kind of knock that says, I'm not here for pleasantries. Lisa opened it. I was just finishing my tea when I heard Emily's voice cut through the air. I want to talk to my mother alone. Lisa didn't flinch. She looked back at me, waiting for a signal. I gave a small nod, and she stepped aside, quiet, steady, always present. Emily stormed into the living room like she owned the place. Her eyes were wild, her face tight. I want the truth, she demanded. I didn't bother asking about what I already knew. I spoke to your lawyer, she continued. He didn't tell me anything, but he didn't have to. I can feel it. I set my cup down gently. And what do you feel, Emily? She stared at me. That you're giving everything to her. To Lisa, a stranger, over your own daughter. There it was. Not worry. Not sadness. Not regret. Just entitlement. I looked at her for a long time, my silence making her squirm. She hated when I didn't respond. She always had. I gave you everything I had, I said finally. My time. My energy. My life. And you gave me distance, blame, silence. I didn't. Yes. I interrupted quietly but firmly. You did. And when I got sick, you didn't ask how to help. You asked how to delegate. Her arms folded across her chest, defensive. I have kids, Mom. A career. I can't just drop everything. I did, I said. I dropped everything for you over and over for years, and now I need someone. And you're angry that it's not you. She looked away, biting her lip. Then she snapped back. She's manipulating you. She's caring for me, I said. And there's a difference. Emily's voice rose. You're seriously leaving her everything after all I've done for you? I stood slowly. My body hurt. My legs were weak, but I stood anyway. You never asked what I needed. Not once. You only saw what you thought you were owed. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were rage. Disbelief. She's not family, she yelled. No, I said, my voice steady. She's better. And that broke her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just froze. Then she whispered something I wish I could forget. You'll regret this. She turned and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind her. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't flinch. Lisa came in a few minutes later, silent as always. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just sat beside me. I think she hates me now, I said, my voice quiet. No, Lisa replied, her tone calm. She doesn't hate you. She just hates that you're not under her control anymore. I looked down at my hands. Once they were strong hands, hands that raised a child, ran a household, carried the weight of everything. Now, they trembled in the stillness. She always said I was the strong one. I whispered, you are. Lisa looked at me, her voice steady. You just forgot that strength can say no, too. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything. All the years I swallowed pain. All the ways I justified her behavior. All the times I convinced myself she would grow out of it or grow into love. But some people don't grow into love. They grow into need. And when they don't get what they want, they punish. And now she couldn't punish me anymore. I had chosen differently. And that choice was already starting to change everything. After that day, something inside the house shifted. The silence between Emily and me was no longer the kind that waited to be broken. It was the kind that built walls, cold, tall, deliberate. She stopped visiting entirely. No calls, no texts, just quiet. But it wasn't peaceful. Outside the silence, she was busy. Lisa began to hear whispers from the neighbors. Is it true that woman is living there full-time now? I heard Margaret changed her will. Gave it all to the nurse. That poor daughter, after everything she did for her mom. The pity wasn't for me. It was for Emily. She was painting a picture of herself as the abandoned daughter, the victim. And Lisa? She was the villain, the homewrecker, the manipulator, the gold digger. I told Lisa to ignore it, but I could see the way it chipped away at her. She started avoiding the front yard. She stopped chatting with the mailman. One night, I caught her crying quietly in the laundry room, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. This is my mess, I told her. No, she whispered. I'm the one being accused. And I can't even defend myself. I put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to. I know the truth. But the damage had already started creeping into the corners of the house. The kids, my grandchildren, started pulling away too. Not drastically, not cruelly, but there was a hesitance, a weight in their eyes. They came by less. They stopped asking Lisa for help with homework or snacks. One evening, my oldest grandson sat next to me on the porch, quiet. Finally, he mumbled, Mom said you're mad at her. I looked at him, my heart breaking. I'm not mad, I said. I'm just tired of pretending things are okay when they're not. He stared at his shoes. She said Lisa's stealing our house. That hit me harder than any insult ever had. Lisa came out with lemonade, saw the tension, and paused. I shook my head gently, and she retreated without a word. I turned back to him. Lisa isn't stealing anything. She's taking care of me. He didn't answer. He just nodded, uncomfortable, and changed the subject. After he left, I sat in the dark for a long time. Lisa joined me again, and we watched the porch lights from the houses down the street flicker on, one by one. I should leave, she said finally. I turned to her, stunned. What? If I go, maybe she'll back off. Maybe the kids will come back. I shook my head. No, you don't get to be punished for being kind. She looked at me with tired eyes. But I am. And in that moment, I realized Emily's war wasn't just against me. It was against anyone who gave me the love she refused to offer. She couldn't stand to see someone else do what she wouldn't. She couldn't stand that I had chosen someone else, not out of spite but out of need. That week, Lisa stayed quieter, still helpful, still warm. But I could feel her pulling into herself, protecting her heart. And I hated that. Emily didn't just want to punish me. She wanted to erase Lisa from my life, but I had made my choice, and now I had to protect it. The moment everything cracked open didn't come with yelling or slamming doors. It came in the form of footsteps, heavy, fast, intentional. I was in the living room, dozing under a blanket, when I heard the front door burst open. Lisa had stepped out just minutes earlier to run an errand. I assumed it was her until I heard the voice. Emily. Where is she called, her voice sharp and cold. Before I could even sit up fully, she was already in the room, face flushed, eyes wild. Emily, what are you doing? I asked, but she ignored me completely. Where is she? She demanded again, louder this time. Where's Lisa? She's not here right now, I said, forcing myself upright. My heart began to race. Emily started pacing, her movements frantic. Good, she spat. Because I swear to God, Mom, if I see her again in my house, I'll cut her off. This is not your house. The words hung in the air like smoke. I froze. What did you just say? I asked, trying to steady my breath. My body trembled not just from illness, but from something older, deeper. Rage. Pain. All those years of swallowing every slight, every cold shoulder, every eye roll. It was all boiling up now. You don't live here, I said calmly. You don't get to barge in. You don't get to threaten anyone. I'm not threatening her, she hissed. I'm protecting you. From who? I asked, my voice steady, but my pulse quickening. From the only person who hasn't abandoned me in months, I finished, my words sharp. She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. She's using you. I stood up slowly, my knees nearly buckling under the weight of the moment. No, Emily, I said, my voice low but firm. She's caring for me. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. That hit her hard. She took a step back, her face going pale as if I had slapped her. I continued, my voice calm, but carrying the weight of everything I'd been holding back. You come here like a storm. You throw accusations, spread lies, and now you want to run the person who saved me out of this house. She's not family, Mom, she interrupted, her voice tight with anger. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Neither are you anymore. That broke her. Her face crumpled, lips trembling, eyes filling with tears she wouldn't let fall. You don't mean that, she whispered. I didn't respond because in that moment, part of me did. She looked around the room, as if seeing it for the first time. The photos of the grandkids on the shelves, the quote Lisa brought home from the thrift store because it looked like something cozy, the stack of medical forms organized neatly by the front door. This wasn't her space anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. She turned toward the door, her voice sharp and brittle. You're going to regret this. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. I just sank back into the couch, letting the silence wrap around me like a second skin. Lisa came home a few minutes later. I didn't say anything at first. She put the groceries down, looked at me, and knew. I nodded. Lisa sighed, her shoulders slumping. I think I need to stay somewhere else for a while, she said, her voice small. I looked up at her, eyes tired, but clear. No, she's the one who needs to leave, not you. That night, I lay awake again, but not from fear or regret. For the first time in decades, I had drawn a line, and I wasn't stepping back. I thought Emily had reached her limit, that after our last confrontation, she would retreat, maybe even reflect. But I was wrong. She didn't retreat. She retaliated. It started subtly. A letter in the mailbox from a local probate attorney. A formal request to verify the validity of my new will. A few days later, I received a notice that she'd filed a petition, claiming I had been unduly influenced while drafting it. Lisa found the paperwork first. She brought it to me, her face pale, hands shaking. Did you know about this? I didn't, but I wasn't surprised. Emily wasn't just hurt. She was humiliated. And in her world, humiliation demanded action. That IT didn't matter, that Lisa had never asked me for a penny. It didn't matter that my mind was sharp and clear. None of that mattered to someone like Emily, someone who believed love was earned through proximity, not presence. I called my lawyer immediately. She doesn't have a case, he assured me. You were of sound mind. There's no evidence of coercion. But it will get messy. The word messy lingered in the air for days. Emily didn't stop there. She called my siblings, people she hadn't spoken to in years, telling them I was being manipulated. She contacted the neighbors, even tried to convince my doctor to sign a statement questioning my mental capacity. He refused. Bless him for that. But still, the damage rippled outward. People looked at me differently at the pharmacy. I heard whispers in the grocery store. Even the nurse at my oncology clinic hesitated when she asked, "Do you have family supporting you through this?" And through it all, Lisa stayed. She never asked me to defend her, never complained. She just kept showing up, refilling my pill organizer, prepping my bland meals, sitting beside me through the hardest nights when the nausea came in relentless waves. One morning, I found her outside cleaning the front porch in silence. Her shoulders were tense, her movements sharp and deliberate. I stepped outside, clutching my robe. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated, then turned to face me. "I never wanted this," she said quietly. I understood exactly what she meant. "I didn't come here for money or property or a legacy," she continued. "I just came to help." I nodded. "And you've done more than you know." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "Then why does it feel like I'm being punished for it?" I didn't have an answer. That night, Emily showed up again. No knock, just the sound of the front door creaking open like a storm on the horizon. Lisa was in the kitchen. Emily made a beeline straight for me. "You don't see it, do you?" she said, standing over me. "She's isolating you. She's made you believe I'm the enemy." I stared at her, calm but resolute. "You made yourself the enemy, Emily." Her face twisted with frustration. "I am your daughter." "And I am your mother," she shouted, her voice rising. "A mother you've taken for granted your entire adult life," I said quietly. She turned, ready to leave, but stopped in the hallway where Lisa stood, frozen. They locked eyes, and for a moment I saw it, a look of pure, unfiltered hate in Emily's expression. It wasn't jealousy. It was fear. Fear of losing control, losing her narrative, and worst of all, losing her image of herself as the good daughter. I spoke before she could. "If you keep attacking the people who love me," I said firmly, "you won't just lose the inheritance, you'll lose me." She didn't say another word. She just slammed the door behind her like a warning shot. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. "I want everything documented," I told him. "Every visit, every threat, every legal move she makes." Emily may have declared war, but I wasn't fighting with fists. I was fighting with clarity, with truth, with boundaries, long overdue. The cancer spread faster than we expected. By late summer, I was thinner than I'd ever been. My body was a collection of bones and bruises, my skin carrying the pale yellow tint of too much medication and too little nourishment. The simplest things, bathing, brushing my hair, standing, became small victories. But Lisa never wavered. She adjusted everything around me without ever making me feel less than. She treated me with the same dignity on my weakest days as she did when I could still walk down to the mailbox by myself. We didn't talk much during those days, not because there wasn't anything to say, but because so much had already been said. We had entered a space where silence was comfort, not emptiness. The grandkids started coming by less frequently. Emily no longer brought them, but occasionally they would show up on their own, riding their bikes, knocking on the back door, and sitting beside me on the porch without saying much. Their presence was enough. One afternoon, my youngest granddaughter slipped a drawing into my lap. It was a picture of me and Lisa, both with big, smiling faces. She'd written my two grandmas in crayon. I couldn't hold back the tears. Lisa saw it and froze. Then she knelt beside me and hugged me in silence. That night, I cried harder than I had in months. Not because I was afraid to die, but because I had finally found what love felt like, and I didn't want to leave it. Then one Sunday morning, Emily came back, unannounced as always. But this time, something was different. Her makeup was minimal. Her clothes were simple, no designer handbag, no flashy sunglasses. It was just her and a small, weathered envelope in her hand. Lisa was in the backyard. Emily walked in, stood in front of me, and didn't say a word for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she placed the envelope on the table. "What's this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "A letter," she said quietly. "From Dad. One I found after he died. I never told you." My hands trembled as I picked it up. The handwriting was unmistakable. He had written it to her years ago. In it, he admitted what I had always known, that he was cruel, that I had left to save myself, that I had done the right thing, and that he told her to forgive me. Tears slid down my cheeks as I finished reading. Emily stood still, tears filling her own eyes. "I blamed you," she said softly, "because it was easier than blaming him. And then I just kept doing it, even when I knew better." I looked up at her and she whispered, her voice cracking, and now I know I failed you." The pain in her voice was real, not performative, not dramatic, just human. Just then, Lisa returned, pausing in the doorway, unsure of what was happening. Emily turned to her, and in a voice I'd never heard before said, "I was wrong about you. I let my pride get in the way. I let fear run everything." Lisa nodded slowly, saying nothing. Then Emily turned back to me. "I don't expect anything," she whispered. "Not forgiveness, not the house, not a place back in your life. I had to say it." And for the first time, I believed her. I reached for her hand. "I don't hate you, Emily," I said. "But I can't pretend we're not different now." She nodded. "I know." She left a few minutes later. No drama. No slamming doors. Just quiet. The kind that feels like the closing of a very long, very painful chapter. Lisa sat beside me as the sun dipped lower behind the trees. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm tired." And I said, but not just from the cancer. I was tired of carrying the weight of unspoken truths. Tired of begging for love in places where it was rationed like currency. But now I had said everything that needed to be said, and I'd heard what I needed to hear. Forgiveness isn't a door swinging open. Sometimes it's just the lock quietly clicking loose. The day I truly let go wasn't loud. It was quiet, almost ordinary. The sun came in through the kitchen window, just right, casting that golden light that makes everything look softer. Lisa was humming a tune I didn't recognize while slicing apples. The smell of cinnamon lingered in the air. She'd started baking again, saying it reminded her of simpler times. And I was wrapped in my favorite blanket, sitting in the armchair by the window, watching the trees move in the breeze, as if they'd been waiting for me to finally notice them. Emily came by that afternoon. She didn't announce herself. She didn't have to anymore. There was no makeup this time, no tension in her shoulders. Just Emily, holding a small tray with a cup of tea and a scone, store-bought but warm. "I brought your favorite," she said softly. I smiled. "You remember?" She placed the tray in front of me, sitting across from me and folding her hands nervously in her lap. "Can I stay a while?" she asked. "You already are." We sat there in silence for a while, no accusations, no digging through old wounds. Just two women, one older, one finely grown, sharing space. Emily looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed. "I know things can't go back to how they were," she said quietly. "They shouldn't," I replied gently. "But that doesn't mean they can't move forward." She nodded slowly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." I sipped my tea. "You don't," I said honestly. "But I'm giving it anyway." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Why?" "Because forgiveness," I said, "isn't about freeing you. It's about freeing me." At that moment, Lisa walked in. She paused when she saw Emily and they locked eyes. I held my breath. "I'm sorry," Emily said quietly, "for everything I said, for everything I tried to do." Lisa nodded, her expression unreadable. "Thank you." That was all. No hug, no grand gesture, just mutual acknowledgement, like survivors of different storms standing on the same patch of land for the first time. That night, Emily stayed for dinner. She helped Lisa in the kitchen. They didn't talk much, but there was no tension, just a new, fragile truce. After everyone left the room, I reached for the folder that held the updated will. I opened it one last time and reread the names, the distribution, everything exactly as I had chosen. I didn't change a thing, not out of spite, but because the decision had never been about punishment. It had been about truth. Emily was no longer the center of my story, and that was okay. She was still part of it, but not the axis around which I spun. My legacy would be what I left behind in the hearts of those who loved me out loud. The grandchildren who would remember my laughter, not my silence. The woman who showed me kindness when the world turned cold. The version of myself that finally chose peace over obligation. That night, I wrote a letter, not to Emily, not to Lisa, but to myself. I wrote that I was proud of the woman who finally said enough. Proud of the grandmother who gave her heart without conditions. Proud of the woman who stopped asking to be chosen and chose herself instead. I folded the letter, placed it in the drawer beside my bed, and laid down with the softest smile. This story didn't end in revenge. It ended in freedom. And that, after everything, was more than enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters,